Cradle, Dogs of Fount, Chapter 23. It was the third day of fogginess in a row. Porter glanced out the window at the romantic blanket dancing glacier slow in the breeze. The kids around him were chatting with their notebooks on their laps. He looked back at them and felt a familiarity that had deserted him for what seemed like a long time. He had forgotten about the whole for that moment. A kid again, like the rest of them. "Hey guys," Porter called out. They didn't quiet down after a few seconds. "Guys." They settled into silence this time and gave Porter attention. "Did we get a copy of what's going to be sold at the book fair Wednesday?" he asked. Michelle Williams leaned in and handed him a flyer. Porter took it and noticed it had a nice sheen to it and glanced at the books and posters listed with corresponding photos. He put it in his folder and put his pen in the crease of his ear. "Good. Who is going to help Miss Rotterdam?" he asked. Michelle Williams raised her hand and blew her bangs up. "We need one more person to help," Porter said. Silence for a moment. "I'll help," Francisco Turner volunteered. Porter wrote Francisco's name in his notebook. He checked his notes for anything else they needed to cover before they adjourned and headed home. The only thing left was collecting the cash from the fruit sale fundraiser this past weekend at Uptown Dearden Market. It was an event where the mothers and small grocers alike sold the fruit they grew along with desserts, juices, and even sangria. Porter ignored that empty checkbox though. "Okay, guess that's it. Let's go home," Porter said. The children began packing to leave until Inez spoke. "Wait, we have to collect the money from the fundraiser," Inez said, cutting through the commotion. "Porter, how'd you forget about that?" "Oh yeah, I'll take the money and put it in the lockbox. Who has it?" Porter asked. Sherrod Livingston came forward with a stack of bills and some coins in an envelope and handed it to Porter. "You weren't going to say anything?" Porter asked Sherrod. "Yeah, but I forgot I even had it in my bag," Sherrod laughed, making his token nasal snorts. "Okay, now we can leave," Porter called out. He headed towards the president's office. They emptied out just for him at the back of the conference room. Inside, his office smelled like old books from the beams only separated by thin veneer wood-style panels. He unlocked the lockbox found in his lower right file drawer. He handled the money, making sure to separate it correctly from the money in his pocket. Inez was waiting for him in the chilly hallway. The AC always seemed to settle all its cold air when the interior hallway met this foyer hallway. Porter noted that Inez's hair today made her look simply beautiful. He'd been trying his best not to stare whenever he saw her. "Hey, I'm not going home right now. I told you not to wait for me," Porter said. Inez shrugged and smiled. "No biggie. We'll just go to the bus stop together." "Your mom's not picking you up?" Porter asked. He knew the sun would be up for another few hours, but Inez's mother was protective. "She's catering a party," Inez answered. "Where?" he asked as they walked toward the south exit. The sun shined through the fog, creating an angelic haze. "The town, I think." The town was Fountain slang for a small city near Fount, famous for Rasta and hip-hop heads that made a community where there were famous music clubs, lounges, and apparel stores focused on that culture. Teenagers would skate in the famous skate park Shred Collab. People in their 20s fought to find studios and one-bedroom apartments in the town due to the small size of the city, so in turn many of them had roommates. "Does your mom smoke?" Porter asked, surprised she would go to that area. "Weed? Yeah. I think she does every now and then. She's not addicted," Inez answered. Porter opened the glass door for Inez and they stepped out into the fog, which felt like walking into a light mist that would happen by walking behind a sprinkler head. As they walked towards Bishop Road, they fell silent with not much to say but still comfortable in each other's presence. Porter felt like he loved Inez and it was making him feel phony. What did a kid know about being in love, he thought. This is playtime, play dates. However, there was no denying her beauty, and she had a good heart. She was unspoiled by the attention she got, and Porter couldn't guess how she maintained that humbleness. They made it to Porter's bus stop and paused. Porter stares into Inez's amber eyes for a moment, and she smiled in what almost seemed like submission, but Porter was too young to recognize such a look. "Bye," she said, and simply walked away. Porter was tickled and somewhat hurt at the same time. What stopped him from becoming upset was knowing that he didn't see the whole picture. There was no denying anymore that there was something between her and him. He looked back to see where she was, but she was nothing but a black smudge in the fog now, down the road. The bus came a little after. An elderly man with a tweed cap came and sat down. He seemed friendly and offered Porter a cough drop. Porter accepted it politely and then put it in his pocket. Once on the bus, which was mostly empty, Porter sat in the back as usual. The old man took out his paper and smiled at a woman with big black hair. She was gorgeous for a woman in her 50s. The bus made its way lazily to Glen Hill, and Porter just decompressed for the day without music. The buzzing of the bus and the whooshing wind was like atmospheric sedative, and the boy appreciated it without knowing where the calm was coming from. When he walked through the door, he walked into the meeting room somewhat bored, but a couple of his clubmates were shuffling about, moving chairs around, or clearing food containers off the old wood tables. Porter didn't see Taj, but Miles, Tim, and Jess were around the main table where they usually lounged. A few other club members were there, Bill, Chris, and the other Chris. The other Chris they called T for his last name, Turbo. He was rather tall too, which Porter thought the T came from for the first couple of weeks of attendance. Porter sat next to Jess and acknowledged everyone who made eye contact. "Taj can't make it today," Jess informed. "Oh, then what are we doing today?" Porter asked. "Nothing really. You got the money?" Jess asked with a slight smirk. Porter hesitated before taking a wad of cash out of his pocket. It was damn near close to 200 credits, a large amount for anyone, at least in Porter's neighborhood. Jess took it, then stuffed it into his pocket. Porter could actually feel himself becoming more vulnerable as Jess stowed the money away. The cash was for the lunches and printing costs for the clubmates that would go door to door for signatures. There was a ward next to Sisal that had a key election in the coming weeks, where there was a largely popular liberal that was going to criminalize bear hunting in its annexed forest. One of the Sons of Fount sponsors had a rifle business that the hunters liked to patron because he made guns strong enough to take out bears with a couple of shots. The liberal alderman's opponent promised to protect hunters' rights and allow teens to hunt without the supervision of anyone over the age of 18. This was a huge issue in some circles, but Porter couldn't care less. He wanted to start taking on the heat. He was surprised at the moment that the anger still could cause his heart to race. He left after a few short conversations with a couple of the teens and fell asleep on the bus ride home. Porter waved hi to Dad when he entered the kitchen. The chips he bought over the weekend were still untouched, so he grabbed them and went to the fridge and took a can of limeade off the rack. In his room, the warmth of the day was still trapped inside, so he slid open the window, cloudy with condensation, and then kicked off his brown loafers. He still had change in his pocket and opened his nightstand and took out his lockbox. He opened it, and it was empty save a few pennies. He dumped the change and closed the box. All this time, the Sons of Fount thought Porter was stealing from Dearden. They thought he was using his powers to stick it to the liberals, when in fact Porter was using his savings to bankroll their political warfare. Porter was slightly bitter about losing his credits, but he was waiting for that one mission that he could give the Heap payback for taking his mother.